Hey guys, this is Shinoo again with InoKinetic. Welcome back to our channel. We're here to talk about the balanced approach to tuning. We came up with this concept many years ago in our Sector 111 days to kind of address an issue that we were seeing where people were tuning their cars a little bit lopsided, if you will. We went to a lot of track days and would see cars that were just broken in the paddock, and oftentimes it's because people were trying to do too many things, particularly power was one of the biggest culprits. I talked to customers from all over the country, and I remember talking to this one particular customer, and he was adamant that he needed better brakes. And he was telling me that he always overheats the brakes in his cars. And so I asked him, how long have you been tracking your Lotus? And he said to me, well, I pick it up next week. I've never actually had it on track. And so I realized this guy has actually never driven a Lotus on track. So I asked him, what cars do you have experience tracking? He goes, oh, I'm in the Audi club. I've tracked multiple Audis, S4s and RSs, and I'm always cooking the brakes. So I said, listen, go run your Lotus after you get it next week. Do one track day with the stock brakes and you might be surprised. A 4,000-pound Audi is going to behave very differently and generate a hell of a lot more heat than a 2,000-pound Lotus. Anyways, we came up with the balanced approach to tuning. We have this chart that we generated and created so that it would better explain our philosophy to develop a more reliable and safe car for you to enjoy on track and not have to constantly work on or wrench on that car. The way we created this chart is we had a phase 1, a phase 2, and a phase 3. And we started in the top left corner and we moved to the right. And the first area that we always want to address first is safety. So safety as in driver safety as well as car safety. We just released our Track Trilogy of Terror video. If you haven't seen, go check that on our channel. But that one addresses the 3 critical car safety issues. We believe that you also have to address your own safety, your driver safety issues. And our contention is the best thing that you can do for yourself is install a set of harnesses. We were the first to fit a 4-point harness in the Lotuses. To create a harness bar, create a fully integrated system, we worked very closely with HMS Motorsports, Joe Marco and Schroet USA to develop what we felt was a very safe solution to work in the Lotuses. And the reason for that is because we know that if you are locked in behind the steering wheel and controls of your car, you are going to be far better in control. In fact, anecdotally, I would argue that you could probably shave a second off your lap time with racing harnesses. So in addition to that, we also suggest a fire extinguisher, a simple handheld fire extinguisher that you can bolt in. We've got a kit that'll bolt in front of the passenger seat because when you're on the track, cars get hot and inevitably the cars will catch on fire. And having a handheld fire extinguisher readily available to you may be the difference between having a car that you can repair and salvage after a fire or one that's burned to the ground. The third thing that we feel is every bit as important is coaching. You'll see we have coaching in phase 1, we have coaching in phase 2, and we have coaching in phase 3 that we recommend because we truly believe, especially when you're new to the track, but even for you intermediate drivers and frankly even advanced drivers, coaching can make all the difference in the world and can lower your lap times without a doubt. From safety, the next issue that we like to address is handling. I know a lot of people say, oh, handling on a Lotus or these lightweight cars? Well, the handling on the street can be fundamentally different than the handling that you may want to address on track. But either way, whether your car is being tuned for street use, track use, or a combination of the two, we believe that the handling is really the next step after safety to address on the Lotuses. And in phase 1, we believe a good alignment is critical. Get a good alignment. It's that simple. If the toe is off on these cars, they will not handle well. There is a bunch of handling improvement that can be gained as well as feel from even just increasing the camber on the car. That's just a function of pulling shims out of the car. So it's a very easy gain for you. So we believe get a good alignment on the car and you will be surprised at how wonderful the car can handle, whether it's on the street, in the canyons, or on the racetrack. The third thing that we like to address is brakes. Frankly, the factory brake pads are pretty good for the vast majority of beginners and even some of the intermediate drivers. But Lotus engineers have to deliver brakes that work on the street in cold weather as well as in hot weather, stop and go conditions. They've got to address people that don't like too much brake dust or they don't like noise. So you'll find brake selection is a very difficult process, but there are improvements that you can have with brake pads. Certainly, the first time you go out, the stock brake pads are going to work perfectly fine for you. We do suggest that brake fluid be addressed. In other words, make sure you have fresh brake fluid. If it's been over a year, 2 years, or longer since you've had the brake fluid done, please have it changed out. Have your brakes bled before you go out and really drive the car hard. Pedals are the other thing that we mention in this brake tuning section, and that is because on the 05 cars in particular, heel and toe is quite difficult to do. We did a video on our H&T pad, but even on the later cars, we came up with our DBW pedals, drive-by-wire pedals, to help improve pedal positioning so that as you're doing the little dance, you've got much better control. The next area is aero. Now, we don't really suggest doing any aero changes on a car. You really don't need a front splitter. You really don't need a rear wing in this phase 1 approach. So we leave that as is. Then the final area is power. And so in power, what we suggest is, well, put a catback exhaust on the car. That'll lighten the car, allow it to flow a little better, it'll certainly sound better, but that's an easy, good thing that can add a little bit of power, not much. We also mentioned in the power section transmission cooling, and this was frankly more for people that are running dedicated track cars with slicks. For people on the street, not a critical issue. Phase 2 is that next level. When you've reached a certain point of comfort with the car, of skill level in your driving, phase 2 is that next level. And in phase 2, again, we come back to safety first. So what are the safety issues? Well, we think some sort of race seat is going to make a big difference. Again, much like the harnesses, a proper seat that holds you in place will go a long ways to keeping you in control of the car. Again, we add coaching to the mix. We think, again, more coaching is always going to be good. We also suggest data acquisition at this stage. If you're really getting serious about track use, on the street, it's less important, but on the track, a data acquisition system can go a long ways. We favor AIM, but there's a lot of inexpensive solutions now that you can put even on your phone that'll give you a bunch of good feedback that you can use. Other car safety issues that we like to address in the second phase, because it sounds like you're probably getting more serious about track use, is a baffled fuel tank. Then all of a sudden you can address the potential fuel starvations that you can start to experience if you're doing time trials or autocross or things where you need to run lighter fuel loads. The other item that we mentioned from a car safety perspective is engine mounts. And that can be something as simple as track mounts or full-fledged replacement engine mounts that are more aggressive. The Elites and Exige engines move pretty severely with hard driving, whether it's street or track. And so isolating that movement or limiting that movement a bit more is something that we think is worth doing in this phase. So the next step in handling is adjustable coilovers. There is amazing performance gains and comfort gains that you can have if you are willing to invest in adjustable coilovers. Lots of different options there, but it's amazing what you can gain with a new set of shocks. Steering arms are something we list here as well. Steering arms can gain you that additional camber that will really truly allow your R-compound tires to work better. Another thing that we think from a handling perspective that at this stage of the game that's worth investing in is a proper corner balance. So much like we talked about in phase 1 with an alignment, a corner balance is that next level of refinement to the car that enhances the handling and something that you will not regret doing. Again, it's something that you probably need to be at an intermediate level, certainly advanced level, to really detect the difference, but a corner balanced car handles like a dream. So then we get to brakes. So generally speaking, again, the brake rotors on these cars are hard to overheat on the Lotus, Elise, and Exige. It's just really difficult to get enough heat into those brakes. But if you're at a point where you're ready for some new brake rotors, our recommendation is get a set of lighter brake rotors because you can save the unsprung weight, which will go and enhance acceleration, handling, and braking. So our ULTRAdisc brake rotors save 10 pounds of unsprung weight. It's a nice way to go. Then we get to aero. So now this is where we start suggesting some aero enhancements to the car. A rear diffuser, which really is going to address more drag issues than true downforce. Diffusers that are street friendly aren't going to generate that much downforce, frankly. But the crazy race diffusers like that we've put on our race cars, like our car, those things are much larger, almost cartoonish, but they truly do generate downforce. In addition to the diffuser, a front spoiler and a rear wing. So again, choosing something that's balanced together so that you don't upset the car is important. Finally, we get to power, and that's where we can suggest things like supercharger kits or tunes that enhance the power of the car. But along with that are things like additional cooling. So the radiators on our Lotuses are positioned not in an ideal spot. So cooling is always a bit compromised. So when you add more power to the car, you're generating more heat, which needs to be dissipated. So changing out your radiator, maybe to an all-aluminum radiator, is something that you certainly need to consider. Another thing that we mentioned at this phase that is an amazing upgrade is a proper LSD. And I'm very particular about LSDs. I'm not a big fan of the gear type, Torsen style LSDs. What I like are the clutch type, and in particular the OS Geekin, which I think are magic. So anyhow, that is another one of those things in phase 2 that we recommend from a power perspective. Now finally getting to phase 3. Phase 3 is where you are building and serious about having a race car. And that's where we recommend things like a roll cage, put in a full cage in the car. You're going fast enough now that if you hit something, you might actually get further hurt. A fire suppression system that's plumbed in as opposed to the simple handheld fire extinguisher. Have one that's plumbed in, nozzles in the appropriate places to protect you as a driver as well as parts of your car that could catch fire. And then again, coaching. We're back to the coaching thing. It's something that I can't harp on enough because I'm a big proponent of getting a proper coach who is experienced and can help you through the track so that you can turn faster and faster lap times. Then we get to handling, where we recommend the lightweight wheels. You're at a performance now where lighter wheels are certainly going to help you. And then slicks. I mean, slicks are something that will without a doubt lower the lap times of your car. Then we get to brakes. We talk about bigger brakes. Well, bigger brakes assume that you're going much faster than you were before, and for some people, just proper two-piece brake rotors with stock calipers with good fluid and proper pads is enough. But for those of you who may be running lots of aero, slicks, lots of power, you might be putting so much heat into your brakes that you need a larger brake kit. So that's a point in which to start thinking about brakes. In other cases, for some people, your stock brakes may be adequate with some additional cooling. So things to consider at that point. The next section, of course, is aero again. You could add things like canards. You could put in skirts on the car to get you that next level of additional downforce and aero. And then finally, we've got the power area where we say, all right, even more power, but you're probably at a stage now where at over 270 horsepower, we probably suggest that you think about a built motor, because the stock engines, our contention is anything over 270 horsepower on the racetrack is going to be compromised, and you may need to think about a built motor. Certainly the gearboxes are giving up over the 270 horsepower, in particular on guys that don't know how to heel and toe a downshift. But as you go and get faster and faster and put in more power into your car, those are those additional considerations and expenses that you need to think about. Obviously, through this whole thing, anything you can do to lighten a car is always going to help you. And so that's something that certainly from a balanced approach to tuning, we're big proponents of. But ultimately, our belief is that if you take a methodical, balanced approach to tuning your car, you can have a safe, reliable, and frankly, fun experience. So if you have any questions about our philosophy on tuning, whether it's on the street or on the track, the same basic principles apply. Give us a call or comment down below. We're happy to answer any questions that you have. And thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.